Hello, welcome to the interview here on France 24. Well, 2 months after the worst electoral rebuff of his presidency, it was a confident, confrontational, and at times even cocky Barack Obama who delivered his sixth State of the Union address before a Congress that is now fully controlled by Republicans. Proclaiming that the shadow of crisis is past, the U.S. president took credit for a resurgent economy, and he vowed to fight to lift the fortunes of ordinary middle-class Americans, Americans he sees as the foundation of the country's future. He got standing ovations from his fellow Democrats and blank stares from Republicans. Now, when he headed back up Pennsylvania Avenue after the speech, back to the White House, he left behind a Congress seemingly as divided and polarized as ever. So was it a bold visionary speech? Just a waste of time. My guest today is François Clemenceau. He knows a thing or two about State of the Union speeches. Clemenceau, welcome to our studios, François. You are the foreign editor of the Sunday weekly Journal du Dimanche. But more importantly, for our purposes, you are also Washington, D.C.-based correspondent for Europe 1 Radio for 7 years, 2003 to 2010. And you, like me, we were monitoring this speech. You also just came out with a book, which we're going to talk about afterwards, on Hillary Clinton. It's sort of an A to Z primer on the woman who stands a very good chance of being the next president, according to you and many others. Let's start with the speech here. Obama seemed like a president in the driver's speech, despite that electoral setback. Very, very strident call to action for America's middle class to help with jobs and opportunity. Does he stand any chance of passing any of it with this Congress?
It's very difficult to say because it just not depend on him only. I mean, it will depend on the Republicans, obviously. I thought yesterday night he was very clever because everything he put on the table is something that the mainstream in America is ready to go. I mean, you know, the way he tries to put the fiscal issues on the table. Taxing the rich and giving the money back to the middle class. On foreign policy issues, the fact that he's fighting for Cuba and for normalizing the relationship with Iran, it's not something, that the average American are ready for just because they don't know. There is ignorance about these issues. But in the same time, the Republicans think that, it's very difficult to say no, 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 and no because they know what is at stake. And in the same time, I think that politically speaking, he paved the way for the next Democrats. And this is very important. If you are Republican, and if you want to say no, and no, and no again, as they did for the two recent couple of years, they won't have the good agenda for 2016 for the White House.
So he puts the Republicans in a position where they're almost made to look like they're blocking everything. They're against progress.
Exactly. And this is quite savvy, as you said, just because for the Republicans, he will try to divide them into two parts. These two parts are already existing. The Tea Party, the very conservative Republicans. And between these two sides, there are some few really centrists into the Republican Party. And those guys will have, to gather the Republican Party behind something new and something constructive. It will be very difficult to do.
In order to come up with a candidate. Now, it's not looking too much, I think, inside American politics to point out some of the issues that he spoke about. He was talking about childcare for middle-class Americans, free community college for middle-class Americans, paid parental leave, something we take for granted here in Europe, and raising the minimum wage. I think he said at one point, if you can support an entire family and work full-time on less than $15,000 a year, go try it. In Europe, this is not progressive policy, is it?
It's not, just because we are used to it. This is social democracy, and it has even been made possible by some right-wing parties in France since 1945. What is absolutely unbelievable is that he's still proposing these kind of ideas 6 years after winning the White House. It means that he hasn't succeeded to reform this country. So there is a bad point here. He acknowledged that it is a failure from his part, but in the same time, it's a way to say to the Republicans, come on, if you were to compromise on some of these issues, not all, but some of these issues during these 6 recent years, you had that possibility. And since 2010, it's not possible because you are just blocking the House of Representatives, and now the Senate.
And you said that, you know, he's setting the way for the White House in the next election at the end of 2016. Now, your book on Hillary Clinton, there's probably few women, maybe you'll agree with this, few women in public life that the whole world knows more about. She was a senator, she was a secretary of state, she was a first lady, she was the ill-fated candidate against Barack Obama in the Democratic primaries, lost. Your book, though, is interesting because you say there's a lot that we don't know, and yet perhaps it's important that we know, especially for French people. Tell us some of the more interesting things we don't know about Hillary Clinton.
Well, the fact is that in France, there is no biography in French that has been written about Hillary Clinton since 2002, I guess, you know, since the race for the Senate. But so what kind of things the French public knows about Hillary Clinton? The way she behaved as a Secretary of State? Not so much, you know. The way she behaved when she was First Lady at the White House? Very much so, just because, you know, it was a huge scandal and it was on all the world.
What is the French perception of the way she comported herself during her time as First Lady, if you had to sort of summarize it?
I guess that the main impression is that she has been humiliated by her husband and that it was, in the same time, shameful for her, for him, but not so important, just because we're French, because we are Europeans, and that private life is private life. But at the same time, what the French people doesn't know about Hillary Clinton is some truths that are, you know, very shaped inside her. That means the fact that she's pretty religious. I think that French people...
Methodist. Correct?
Yes, that's right. She is coming from the Methodist Church. And it had a real influence on her private life and on her public life. She thinks that because she's faithful and because she believes in God, she has the duty to perform and to transform the society. And this is at the very core of the centrist agenda she tried to shape with her husband, Bill Clinton. And now that she's probably, certainly, candidate for 2016, I guess that some of these issues at the real core of the Democratic Party will come again. And you were right to mention the Obama agenda for 2016. I mean, obviously, the Republicans will try to block it, but Hillary Clinton will take it and to campaign about it.
Hillary Clinton will take it and campaign about it. I mean, you're writing a book about Hillary Clinton because you do think she has a good chance of being next president, but we have seen in the United States, in American politics, big surprises before.
That's right.
Before the show, you were telling me even Barack Obama, not everyone saw him coming early on. Can we be surprised? And if so, who might surprise us?
It's a very good question because you have this question inside the Democratic Party. Who is the new Obama? There is no new Obama for the moment. And the time to have a new Obama is very short. Because if you don't declare yourself as a candidate for the White House for 2016, you know, you have a few months now to make it. And then, even if there is someone, you know, not very well known from the American public, a senator or a governor, who came a little bit late and who says, okay, I'm ready to fight. But to fight against who? Against Hillary Clinton. You're right. In 2008, she behaved as if the White House was a gift for her and someone that was due to her.
It was her turn.
That's right. And now I think she has pretty much corrected this kind of mistakes. She won't run as she did in 2008. She will fight. She will fight against opponents from the left, obviously, because there are plenty of. And she will fight the Republicans.
And that raises that question briefly, because we're running out of time. Who in the Republican camp right now do you think has a chance not only of being a viable candidate, but beating Hillary Clinton?
That's very funny, because the guy who can beat Hillary Clinton will be a centrist among the Republicans. The Tea Party has no chance at all.
Okay.
I mean, they have, you know, 30, 35, 40% of the Republican Party at most. So this is not a majority. So the guy who is supposed to win is someone coming from the center or the center-right of the Republican Party. Let's say Jeb Bush or Mitt Romney or Chris Christie. But this guy, if he succeeds to gather the Republican Party behind him, he has a little chance to beat her. Because when the American public will have to choose between a centrist on the Democratic side or a centrist on the Republican side, he will probably choose the Democratic part. Why? Just because the legacy of Barack Obama is not so bad. I mean, look at this popularity. He's now 50%. Who would say that it was possible?
It's gone up recently.
Absolutely. Right. If there is some new things that Obama can do, for example, in foreign policy, for example, if he can fight against the Republicans on what is at stake, that means the healthcare reform, it will be a real legacy on which Hillary Clinton can campaign
Can campaign. So maybe she will have some of that Obama tailwind in her back, pushing her on. Unfortunately, we've run out of time, François Clemenceau, former Washington, D.C.-based correspondent with Europe 1 Radio, the current foreign editor of the Sunday weekly newspaper, Journal du Dimanche. Thank you very much. And we didn't get to talk about the issues of a dynasty in the making, the Clinton dynasty. We've seen a lot of Bushes, but next time, unfortunately.
We have 2 years from now.
We have 2 years to go. So thank you very much. And thanks to all of you for watching the interview here on France 24. More news coming up.